should I start pressing? I'll press that button now. So as of now, the webinar is getting recorded. So I will make sure that there's a file online for you on my YouTube page, probably on Monday. All your microphones are on mute, so I can't hear anything. If you do have any questions, please don't use the hand up thing. We've got too many people on board. We're coming up to the 150 mark now, so there's quite a lot of people. So we won't use the hand up, but if you want to use the Q&A, that is absolutely perfect. So just go in there, type some questions. Now, I won't be seeing the questions until I get to the end of the presentation. So therefore, Doran's going to field the questions for me and we can go through that way, and that's how we're going to do it. And as I say, I'll then do all the answers at the end and we'll go through everything. Now, there is a hell of a lot, but the one thing I will say is every single thing that you see during this presentation, I'm going to make sure that you get a copy of. Now, okay, so the agenda. First of all, I'm obviously doing this little tiny intro, which is fine. Then I'm going to break down each of the sections and go into a lot more detail. Then we'll do a Q&A. Now, obviously, I've done all this work for everyone else free of charge. So whilst I'm furloughed, I thought I have a choice. I can sit here and moan, or I can put something together that may actually help people. After I'd had a couple of conversations with organisations, I realised that this is something that might help. And obviously then Simspar and Tara Dillon and a few more people got involved. So it's sort of grown a pair of legs. But the whole idea behind it is if you can please give me any feedback on the session at the end, that will be much, much appreciated. And like I say, every single thing that you see, you'll be getting a copy of. So now, this presentation is not designed to try and get you open quicker. In fact, it's definitely not for that. We know one of the biggest fears is that imagine trying to open up your business with only 30% of income, but 100% of costs. It's probably not going to be a good picture for many people. Now, this is the reason that Simspar and UK Active are working tirelessly in the background. So they're trying to get the furlough scheme extended for us. That's something that they're trying to do. They're trying to look at VAT and how if there's any sort of relief from a VAT perspective. So we've got more money available to us. They're looking at rents, and there's so many things they're trying to do in the background. Like I said, right at the beginning of this today, contrary to what it says in the Sun, imagine that, not being able to believe the Sun. But contrary to what it's saying in the Sun, there is a meeting today where they're going to government with their plan. And then hopefully the plan will then get rolled out to us. Now, I've seen previous drafts and obviously with working with UK Active, so not the final one, but I've tried to work as much into the presentation as possible. But yeah, this is not about getting you open quick. It's about making sure we can get you ready. The dangers of not being ready, to me, this is your chance to relaunch your whole centre or all of your centres. When was the last time this happened? So it normally only happens when you have a new build and we get to do a launch. So this is an absolute perfect opportunity. Again, the way the presentation is structured is I'm going to talk through guidelines. Now, the guidelines are basically the least you need to do to be safe by law. Now, the presentation isn't about that. It is going to include it, so it has to include it. But what the presentation's about is about the business decisions and what you're going to need to consider. So I'm going to go through anywhere between 150 and 180 points. It is going to be thick and fast, so please bear with me. And yeah, let's go. Now, where was this born? Now, obviously, when all the furlough stuff kicked in, I decided to have 3 weeks off with my kids. I've seen a load of bits and pieces going on LinkedIn, same stuff all the time, and I just thought, you know what, cut off. There's nothing I can do. All my customers have sort of closed down, etc. So I'm just going to play with the kids. Now, while I was doing that, I was doing bits of homework. I was finding out what was going on in Beijing and this trouble they were having opening. And I had a look at the Alabama and the Alaska and various different places in America that had opened. So I got all their guidelines to have a look through. I was looking through at Sweden, very, very key because they managed to stay open. The testing's a hell of a lot better than ours. So, you know, that's the only comparison or the reason why they've been able to do it. But the idea behind it, I sat down and started doing a little bit of homework. Now, I started getting a bit panicky, and I don't even run a site because as I started to compile a list in my head, I realised that this was quite massive. So I started to put the list together. I started talking through it with a few companies. And like I said, very, very quickly, I realised that some of them hadn't done anything at all. And this was seeming to be quite a considerable boost. in terms of how it was getting the information across to them. So I got a phone call off Tara Dillon. She asked me to explain it to her. I did, and she said, "Okay, Craig, would you be able to do this for other people?" I was like, "Of course I can. Why not?" So obviously they've helped me with all the guidelines, the various bits and pieces, which has been brilliant. And then obviously Data Pepper, Dawn. So if you don't know Dawn, she used to work with me at Cascade. She's an absolute legend when it comes to data. She works on her own now. Some of the stuff that she's doing is absolutely fantastic, and I would not be able to do this without her. So Dawn is my able assistant, making sure that we can try and get all this information out to you. Gladstone, now this was brilliant. So again, I went to Gladstone and I said to them, "Can you please do me a favour? I need a document that anyone, no matter what leisure system they have, can take to their leisure management provider and go, look, these are the things I need to do." And guess what? They just stepped up. No problem whatsoever. I probably had an hour and a half with Tom, Claire, a couple of the directors and a couple of the senior team. The next day, I had an amazing document back. Again, I'll go through and I'll show you aspects of that as we go through the presentation, but that alone is absolute gold dust. TA6, so obviously powered by Alliance. Now, when I went to speak to one of my early customers, I was having a chat with them, and they said, we've had some details through because they do some work with Alliance. I often work with organisations that work with Alliance, so I'm used to that, and that's absolutely fine. As soon as I looked at their material, I thought, this is brilliant. There's no need for me to put anything together whatsoever. So I went and had a chat with TA6, Paul Woody, and basically said, look, mate, can we please have this for free? Can we put it in? And he said, yeah, by all means, mate. They're doing everything they can to help the industry. So they've even put a load of different tools together, which we'll get links to for you in the follow-up packs that come in the future days. So yeah, TA6, absolutely brilliant. And you'll see some of their stuff. UK Active, like I've said, they are doing so much in the background. Now, I've never really sort of worked on anything at this level or this height or this close to the government. And looking at some of the stuff they're doing is absolutely phenomenal. Them and SimSpa, the work they're doing is just second to none. So if you ever bump into any of your reps or Dave or anyone else that you bump into, Dave Olstead or Stephen Scales, etc., please give them a pat on the back for what they're trying to do to the industry. It's really much appreciated. Then I knew that I needed a safety expert on board. So I got Christian Harris from Slip Safety Services, and he's helped me put some information together on deep cleans and cleaning standards and various different bits and pieces, which again, I'm going to go through. And then this morning, I'd had a chat with Pro Insight, and Pro Insight had started putting some stuff together, and they got it across to me today. So the badge isn't on here, but it's definitely part of the presentation and definitely part of the follow-up. So you'll see all the different bits and pieces that you're going to get. Right, so what will you get? The full mind map. So I'm going to show you a mind map. I'm going to break it down into all the sections and I'm going to talk through it. On the mind map, there's a little bit of a legend, which I'll talk you through in a minute. You will get a copy of that mind map. Now, obviously, it's not the mind map software. It'll be in form of a PDF. When you see it, it will look small. So my advice would be to get it blown up. I don't know about yourself, but I personally work better working from a central point and working outwards. Our brains tend to think radiant, and that's why I tend to use mind maps. I have also converted it across into Excel for all those Excel lovers, because I know there's loads of them out there. So you'll get the mind map and you'll get everything that you see based into the Excel document. We've also got a lot of templates and guides, so I'll go through them. I'll talk you through them. I won't explain them all because there's so much information in them, but I'll talk you through them, and then after the session, there's going to be a link dropped in. You can click on that link. You can download it from WeTransfer. Anyone has any problems, just email me and I can get it fixed for you. So basically, everything you see is going to be part of what you get. Oh, and it's a live working document. So we know if Big Bozza comes out on Sunday and says something different, this may need to change, which is also something that I'm going to talk about. Is the whole idea of trying to do this was to try and bring organisations together to see whether we can work together and in sync. So again, I'd like to, with the help of SimSpa, we're going to have there's going to be a hub, and we're going to have weekly updates and stuff that goes on there, so we can keep up to date with stuff, because this is a fast moving beast. So what do we ask of you? To ask a question, please don't put your hand up, because that's a pain in the bum. We did that on the first one and it was a nightmare. So please just put your Q&A straight into the Q&A section. And Dornell will pick anything up. As I say, I won't be picking them up until I've finished the presentation. So I'm not ignoring them. There's just that much information to come through. And if it was anything like yesterday, a hell of a lot of questions as well. Again, the whole idea of this is that I'm going to give you a load of best practice or things to start with. What I'd really like to do going forward is that if people could update me, and then I can start creating even more best practice. So let's say, for instance, I'm going to show you an example of a communication guide. Once you've completed that guide, you've got the ideas of who you need to speak to, when you need to speak to them, and you've got your plan ready. If you can send that back, we can then update it and start showing other companies what they can do. So we can all start working together. And there's a lot more in terms of the best practice stuff that I'm going to go through with you. During the presentation, as you don't really need to write anything down because you're going to get a copy of everything, please just think of where you're going to need help. Now, as someone who helps organizations, the biggest frustration I have is that they expect me to come in and do a customer service training one day and turn around the whole organization. Or they know they've had a problem for years, or they're about to open a new leisure centre, they want some sales training, and 2 weeks before they panic because they haven't actually done what they said they were going to do, and then they call me and get me to help them. Now, all I'm saying is there's some really good organisations who put some amazing work together. If they can take some of the pain and pressure off you, that really makes sense. There is so much to do, and you'll see that as we get through this now. And again, please give me some feedback at the end of the session. That would be much appreciated. So, mind map time. What I'm going to do now is break into the mind map. So what you can see here is, first of all, there's a little tiny guide. So once I go into the mind map, anything with a red flag on it, that basically matches guidelines. So these are things you have to do. There's no choice. You have to do these things. These things are in the guidelines. Should do. Now, again, you've got to understand the guidelines say things like, they're not going to say, how do you market your business? Because they're not going to get involved in that, because that's not going to cause any health and safety issues. Right? But obviously we know this is an amazing opportunity. So what I've done is that we've got must, should, could. There's a little blue dot for training needed. There's a little green pen, which is when you need to make decisions. And there's a grey star, which are good business decisions. So they're things that will definitely not be part of the guidance, but you should definitely be doing. So that's a little guide. I'll talk you through it, and I'll try and do as much as possible of explaining what we've got here. So PPE. We'll start off with all the fun stuff. Bit of PPE and cleaning, my favourite. Can't wait. So PPE. Now, there's a couple of things here. We need to look at the guidelines, basically. So what we've got here is we've obviously got staff. We need to look after staff. That's key. Personally, I would put staff first. Yeah. So the guidelines are basically saying you have to wear PPE when you're cleaning, which was exactly the same as it was prior to COVID, that you were meant to wear the correct PPE for the particular chemicals or the task that you're doing. So that still stands. And in terms of reception and for fitness and the crash or whatever teams or what other people you've got in, by the guidance, they do not have to wear a mask. By guidance, you do not have to have a barrier. Now, what's key to talk about in this is that the guidance, like I said, is the least you need to do. Now, will the guidance bring in public confidence? Public confidence is absolutely key. Now, every single video I saw when I was sort of trying to market and try and understand what was going on in China and America, all their social media is stacked out with them doing sort of fog cleaning, with them showing all the staff with their PPE on. It's about making sure people know that when they come back, they're going to be walking into a safe environment where we care. Me personally, so I know I've spoken to 20 individual organisations doing this, and nearly by the end of this, probably 350, 400 organisations. And I know of probably about 8 or 9 organisations that have already ordered their masks. I've already ordered certain PPE. I've already ordered their sanitised stations, and I've already ordered hand gel to sell, which again, we'll go through that in a second. Now, the fear is that there is a cost if you've got to buy the PPE. I totally and utterly understand that. So let's just say, let's pull a number out of the bag. Let's say we've got to spend £10,000 on masks, and that is a huge cost. Now, how much is it going to cost us if we don't wear the mask? What percentage of our customers may come back? From the recent studies that have been done, it looks like anything between probably 30 and 50% of the customer base could come back when we initially open the doors. So that's low. It's very, very low. Now, if there's anything we can do with that, again, as I talk through this whole process, there's a load of different ideas and things that we might be able to do to get them. So you need to decide what you're going to do for your staff. Now, I think putting the staff first, to me, is absolutely paramount. So we know that if you have a look at the PPE that's in hospitals, it's obviously a different grade than the PPE that you're going to be wearing. Okay. Now, does PPE work? Well, it seems to work very, very well in hospitals. And when you walk out, they're saying that it doesn't. It works in Scotland because they want to use it. But at the minute, there's no evidence that it works in England. But there is in Scotland and in hospitals. So please think about that, please. Please think about the public confidence when they first come in. So yes, you've got to decide what they want and how they're going to and where they're going to have it, etc. In terms of PPE, so where do they get it from? We need to train them. Where do they get it from? How often does it need changing? So does a mask last for 4 hours, 8 hours, 24 hours? Will it last for the month, etc.? And how do you reorder this? So again, there is a backup document that you're going to be getting for this. This backup document will basically look like this. And within this, there's a little PPE log or sheet that I've put in there. So if you're going to wear, how many masks per shift? Imagine it only lasts for 4 hours, so I might need to wear 2. Visors, that might last a month. Gloves, if you're going to wear them, there's not much evidence that gloves are valid, especially outside of a surgical setting. But if you are going to wear gloves, how many per shift, how many aprons, etc., how many shifts would they do? And then it automatically works out how many you're going to need to order. So there's just a quick thing to try and get you up and running, which is fine. In terms of advice, we have to do this by law. We have to make sure our staff are advised. Now, the advice for the staff comes in a couple of forms. So again, what I've done, I've tried to find some posters and things that you can use. These are from the World Health Organization. So it's not like I've made them myself on my computer. And this is making sure that your staff have been retrained in the exact guides and exactly what they can and can't do when they come in. Where should they cough? What should they do if they feel ill? How do you wash your hands, etc., etc.? If you feel ill, what should you do? So we need to make sure that all the staff are trained in that, which is absolutely paramount. And again, there's staff for customers. So what I've done here, there's another one from the World Health Organization saying, wash your hands, don't touch your eyes, nose, cover if you're going to be doing a cough, avoid crowded places, make sure you stay. If you feel ill, don't come in, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so that's absolutely key. And again, no handshakes, no high fives, no knuckles, none of that, any touching out. Some people may do the fishmonger's high five, which is where you use your elbow because the hands are normally covered in goo. But the idea behind it, no physical touching of skin to skin where possible, and making sure everyone's aware of that. The next bit and the next decision to be made is staff rooms. So our staff rooms, again, through the various conversations I've had, I found 2 fields of thought. I found some organisations that have gone, we're just closing it. Okay, so staff rooms closed because then they can't group in there, so it won't cause any hassle. So that will solve the problem, apart from where do you eat your dinner. Or some other organisations are creating a timetable. So it might be one receptionist, one fitness person, one leisure assistant can go in at any one time. All I'm saying is, yes, by law, you have to prevent the grouping in there. How you go about doing that is totally up to you, which is why they've got sort of yellow flags, and obviously only that one's got red. Now, my advice is, obviously, if you're going to be closing down your room, or only one can go, one receptionist can go in a time, but there's 2 on a break, etc., then you need to advise people what they should do for lunch. Should they go to the car? Is the space outside, etc., etc. In terms of meetings, so I should imagine you've all done this already. Let's question: do we need those meetings now? I know some organisations have meetings for meeting's sake. So can we quash some of those meetings? And if we definitely need them, can they go to virtual? Can they go to this sort of thing where we can talk through and show and do bits and pieces? In terms of staff ratios and bringing people back, so for those of you that have furloughed people, obviously you've got to tell people as and when they can come back in. Now, in terms of receptionists, normally you might have 1 on reception, maybe 2. Well, now we're going to need people on the door. They're going to need clickers. They're going to need to monitor how many people are coming in and out. We're also going to possibly need people managing queues. Did anyone see the video of B&Q? When they opened the other day, there was a queue for about 1.5 miles down the road. We can hopefully monitor our numbers a little bit better because we've got a membership system and we can phase it in. And we can possibly also do booking systems, but I'm going to talk to you about that when we get to different phases. So that's quite big. Customers. So now it doesn't state that you have to use hand gel. It states that you have to give them the opportunity to keep themselves hygienically clean. but some organisations have took that on board as hand gel. Like I've said, what some organisations do are not providing hand gel, but they are selling it. So what they're saying is, here's a list of things that we will do. If you want to be extra safe, buy one of these offers. So they're using it as an opportunity to do a little bit of upsell. Now, the customers need to be made aware of their expectations. So, how about cleaning kit? Now, this is another thing. So the cleaning kit is key. Now, we've got 140 odd organisations on this meeting today, probably a little bit less. Let's say about 110 organisations on this meeting. Now, out of those sort of 110, do we need to make 110 videos of how to clean the kit? Or could we try and do this centrally? Could this be part of the best practice in the pooling that we do? Can this be again, we'll talk about the marketing campaigns. Do we need 140 marketing campaigns, or can we just try and use one or two? Yet the idea behind it is we're all trying to do the same thing, and we've all got the same problems. In terms of dealing with staff, now I went onto a lot of the forums for the supermarkets because obviously they were open first. Now, yes, they were open first, but they were also open when they didn't have a plan. We've got time to plan before we go in, so we can't have the chaos that they had. Now, what I did notice that there was a hell of a lot of people crying on the forums. So we need to make sure that staff are aware of how to deal with conflict, and the management need to be there to help. They can't be in an office or managing a bunch of keys somewhere. They need to manage the situation, because this is going to cause our staff a hell of a lot of grief, and mainly in the queuing side of things, or the fact that they want to book things and they're not going to be able to because you're going to have limited numbers in classes, etc., etc. Again, what else are you going to provide? So blue roll, hand wipes, barriers. So how are you going to sort of segregate people? What's that going to look like? I envisage this horrible vision of walking into leisure centres and it's going to look like something from CSI. There's going to be black and yellow tape all over here. There's going to be white and red tape over here. There's going to be a picture of a body on a treadmill saying we can't use it, etc., etc. So we have got time. We don't need to do the same as the supermarkets. We've got a little bit more time than them. So what can we do and how can we make it look better? Things like car parking machines. So are they contactless? If so, fine, not a problem. If not, what's your plan? Are you going to close them? Is there going to be something there left so they can wipe them? What are you going to do? So again, it's something that we really need to think through. One-way routes. So one-way routes are deemed as essential. You have to have these. I think this is a really good way. Wherever you would get grouping of people, if we can plough the route to walk through where the groups would congregate, then that may be a tool to help us to stop or to prevent the grouping side of things. Now, again, it's essential that you do this, but how you do it is up to you. So again, this is one of the reasons why I'm trying to do this seminar, is to try and sort of give a little bit more meat to the bones of the guidance. The guidance says, yes, have a one-way route. It just doesn't tell you how to do it. So will you have a map to explain? Now, you might not have every area open when you first open. So how will that look on the map? Are you going to show people, look, please don't go to these because these are closed, etc.? Are you going to use arrows on floor, tape on floor? Everyone loves a good bit of tape. Are they going to hang from the ceiling, etc., etc.? What are we going to do about stopping people going on stairs and lifts and all those types of things? Lifeguard training. So before, we know that if you furlough any of your staff, if they've been furloughed, it probably means that they haven't been keeping up to date with their lifeguarding. So before they can go back on duty, you have to get them back on track in terms of lifeguarding. They just have to be ready to do it. It's as simple as that. So you've got to do it. Now, this next part wasn't part of the guidance. And what this is that your plan, if one of your staff were to come down with COVID after you've opened, or if a member comes down with COVID after you've opened. So I think you need to have a plan B and probably even a plan C as to what happens. So how are you going to contact staff and what are you going to let them know? Are you going to let the customers know? How are you going to send people home? Are you going to close? So imagine I've got 5 members of staff in. It's a late part of the shift. Someone comes up and says, Craig, I feel rough. Normally we'd go to them, get a grip, you'll be fine, sort it out. Now we can't. We need to go excellent. You need to go now 14 days off, etc., etc. We need to understand it. We need to send them home. And then because we've now only got 4 people, does that mean we close the small pool? Or does that mean we close the pool? Or does that mean we now don't man the creche? Or whatever it is that you're going to do. Ignore the creche because they're probably going to be closed, but I'll come on to that in a second. So again, after you found someone has had corona or COVID, then what does the deep clean look like? Again, when I come onto the cleaning standards, Christian Harris has really put some good information on what a deep clean is, because I find this very frustrating. I've been to organisations who've told me they've done a deep clean, and I think that means they just actually use the cloth. But I've got some clarification on that, so we can go a little tiny bit deeper. Now, again, the only thing you officially have to do as part of the guidance is you have to report this. We have to report the sickness. It's part of this sort of containment and what we're going to do. So having a plan, perfect. First aid. Now, again, I'm still waiting to get the final confirmation for this, but our LSS have said that there'll be no mouth-to-mouth, just compressions. I also know that a lot of first aid companies teach that way now. They don't teach the mouth-to-mouth. They just teach the compression. So for some organisations, there will be no change in terms of first aid training, but I'm just waiting to get the information back. And again, this is something that will end up on the SimSpa Hub page, which is hopefully going to be the one-stop shop to get all the information for you. Now, I know the likes of Carmarthen have opened up in the Part Hospital now. I know we've got other places that are doing, like Hartlepool, like drop-off centres and dropping food bags and all these different things in. Some amazing, wonderful stuff happening out there. Flintshire, Sharnbleed, now that is some overhaul, isn't it? That obviously the BMX park's gone and they've now turned that into a hospital, so for the overflow. So what I'm saying here, if you become a testing centre, if you become anything like that, then hopefully we can build some information for this. So I haven't got it yet, but if any of you do it and you want me to help you, then we can put something together and make sure we can do this. So that was just PPE and protecting staff. So let's get on to the sexy bits, cleaning. Right, so these are the certain things we need to look at. Now, regularity, we need to train the staff in. Now, my biggest frustration about cleaning is theoretically nothing should change. Now, I know that's not true because, like I said, I've worked with some of you and I know that that's not the case. But theoretically, we should have been wiping and cleaning things properly anyway. So I should be saying to you, just use whatever guides and training you've already done with all of your teams on training. Right, I'm a little bit fearful of that, so that's why I'm going to go through and I'm going to give you some starting points. But regularity is key, so we need to have a look at what gets cleaned and how often, and that's essential. It's part of the guidelines. We need to do it. So what I've done in here is I've just put some surfaces on we need to consider. So for staff, you're looking at desks and gates and doors and things like that. Phones, obviously the phones that they're ringing out and answering all the time. The touch screens, the till, the card machines. If we can go contactless, that's better than cashless. Cashless is better than using money. So obviously we can go down that route, and obviously doors, the amount of time that we touch doors, etc. Now there's loads more than that. I'm not saying that this is definitive. What I am saying is I'm just trying to give you a start. I'm just trying to make sure that you consider things that you may not have considered. So for customers, doors, hairdryers, shampoo, toilet roll holders, lockers, leaflet holders, the lifts. How many of your lifts have got at least 2 meters space? Again, maybe not many. So you've got to look at how those types of things work and how they get wiped, how often they get wiped. Is it the buttons that get wiped? Is it the handles on the doors? I remember walking into one particular site and there must have been about 4 million fingerprints on the lift. And I remember saying it's a CSI nightmare. That can't happen. We can't have that going forward. So we need to fix that. So again, in terms of regularity, what we've got there is we've got a couple of things that we need to make sure we're considering, and we need to have it all written down in a plan. Cleaner training. So again, what cloths to use, what kit you have, sprays, hoovers, tile cleaners, etc. What you have. What are the expectations of the customer? So what should they do? Again, this would be a video, it'd be rolling in the gym, it'd be rolling in reception. I personally would be having a COVID induction when people come in. So before they can come back, they need to watch a little video and say they agree with it and they're going to follow it. Again, I'll do a little bit more of that when we get round to the phasing areas. Now, anyone that knows me, I'm a big fan of training people and doing that in person, because I think a lot of skills need to happen in person. Teaching someone to do a one-to-one or how to present or how to become a fitness instructor. Apparently you become a fitness instructor online now. Okay. Worries the death out of me, but fine. But what I'm saying is for cleaning, this is absolutely perfect for a tick box exercise, if we want to call it that. So cleaning fits really, really well for e-learning, so that's fine. Like I said, there's a link in here of slip safety services, and what they do, they've got a floor calculator on their site. So you go through, you ask a couple of questions, and then it spits out this thing telling you how much time it's going to take you to deep clean that much space. The biggest problem that I see is that you might have a studio that might be 1,500 meters squared, and we give someone 10 minutes to clean it. It's not enough. I'm going back. We cannot fall back into our old standards. They have to be better when we first open up, and ideally stay there. So training for cleaning is key. Again, propose deep cleans. So it says here that fog cleaning, I'll put that one at the top. So fog cleaning is not essential. Okay. Now that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. Okay. In terms of increasing public confidence, I don't know whether you've noticed, but on every news bulletin, they're either fog cleaning a nursing home or a gym or an office. So in terms of public confidence, there's a reason why this is on all social media and all television streams. So although the guidelines say you don't need to do it, if you do it, make sure you get it, make sure you video it, and make sure you can use it to your benefit. Now, in terms of a deep clean, there's a document again that's been put together. So on here, let me just move this so I can see it. So this is, let's have a look at this one. Where did I put it? No. There's that many bits and pieces on here that I'm starting to. Okay, perfect. It's at the beginning. Oh, there we go. Success must leave in dark. No, it's not that one. Okay, so what these are examples of things to get you started. So this is an example of cleaning standards. So this is looking at certain aspects of the building, what you would need, how you would do these things properly. I would advise that you create these with videos. The videos will take a little tiny bit longer than it needs to actually do stuff. Again, there's an example cleaning document in here that gives you an example of, if I go to the top, what this does, it'll give you a breakdown of cleaning equipment and storage, required outcomes, color coding for mops and cloths and various different things. So this is just a start for you to get going. And also, I've had some stuff added off Christian from Slip Safety. I can't find it on there, but I will find it. I'll definitely make sure it's attached to the one that you actually receive. So deep cleaning has to happen. Now, in terms for it to be a deep clean, this means that you have to clean the surface until there's sort of as little bacteria and as little mess and dirt as possible. Then you need to let it dry, and then you need to sanitize. So a deep clean is cleaning properly, air drying, and then sanitizing. Again, there'll be a full guide of exactly how you can do that. But again, looking at some places, this is something we need. This is something we definitely need to sort out. Other things you might want to deep clean. Now, I quickly realized by doing this list that it's basically everything, but obviously kit for classes, dumbbells, rubber bands, leaflet holders, notice boards, lockers. As soon as I started putting this list together, I just stopped and said, look, it's basically everything. The customers think that you are going to clean absolutely everything. Now, I know, knowing all you good people, that your maintenance people have probably changed all the filters in your air handling units. All your air conditioning is now going to work absolutely amazing because it's all been hoovered and cleaned and got all the right stuff in it. You've had all your paint's been touched up and all your tiles are now fixed on and all the cleaning and bits and pieces. All the drains are unblocked or any smells that are there. You've got no excuse, you've had plenty of time. So I'm glad that you've already done all that, but now we need to make sure all this stuff happens as well. Again, sanitization stations. I know people who've ordered these. Now, the prices will go up. Now, I started doing some stuff on PPE. I went to 10 different companies in regard to try and get PPE procurement. And after about 2 weeks of lots and lots of back and forth, I found out that 6 of them were middlemen who were just trying to cream off someone else. I found 3 organizations that had massively hiked up their prices, which morally I don't like. And I found one that I would deem as usable. Again, I haven't built that into the pack because obviously SimSpot and UK Active are involved. We don't want to be directing towards certain organisations, especially if they're not on procurement. But if anyone does need any help, just give me a shout and I can sort of help you in bits and pieces. Now, this next bit is checking the checks. You can see I've given this a star. My biggest bugbear, and anyone knows who's worked with me, is when people sign stuff off. So I remember doing a training day. Now, on this training day, at 8 o'clock in the morning, they were that good, they'd already done the 10 o'clock checks. Brilliant, isn't it? It's amazing. And then on the same day, I went out And at about 3:30, the 3 o'clock one hadn't been done. But at 4:30, it had been, which was brilliant. So what I want, this is about checking the checks, right? So again, the idea behind this is that we don't, just the fact that it's signed for isn't good enough. Duty managers need to manage, not go, okay, it's signed, we can't get sued. Yeah. The idea behind this, we have to check the checks. Now there's a thing, I think it's called Fresh Check. It's a spray that you can get. And when you spray it on surfaces, if it changes color, it's because there's a high level of bacteria in it. For about 40, you get a little one for about 48 quid. I know Slip Safety and a few others use these types of things. And you'll get about 100 doses out of one of those bottles. So it's 48p to find out whether a particular surface is dirty or not. So having some sort of proof there, again, shows that you're going above and beyond. Now, do your customers want to know that you're doing the least possible? Or do they want to know that you're doing everything you can to make sure your staff are safe and that they're safe? That's the choices that you've got. Because the guidelines are really the least. I can't say it anymore. Again, like we said before, how long does it take someone to clean properly? If I've got 15 meters squared, it can't be done. So again, this is where you can get the calculator from Slip Safety, and they can help work that out for you. Again, like I've said, I've got some guides that I've already built in there. So we've got this cleaning example doc, we've got the cleaning standards, etc., etc. And what I've also got in there is examples of risk assessments and bits and pieces. Okay. So cleaning over. Woo! Right, we're going to very nearly start getting onto bits that are nearly exciting in a minute. Okay. Oh, little drink needed. Right, COVID checks. So, sickness reporting, got to be done. Absolutely paramount, no choices. We have to do that properly. Like I've just said there, if you haven't already done a risk assessment, I'm assuming you would have, because you've got staff working in environments already. So, yeah, your risk assessments are probably done. But if you haven't done one, like I've said, there's going to be one added to the pack. Now, this thing that you see in here, this yellow thing, this is what's called a welcome if sign. They're using these in Sweden, and they're now starting to introduce these in America. So to me, this would become part of the induction. It's basically saying you are welcome if you adhere to this sign. Now, we are waiting on UK Active or SimSpa or PHE England or someone who's going to put the neck on the line and basically say, right, this is what we're saying we want you to do. So the welcome if sign is, yeah, again, do we need 140 of these made after this session, or can we just get one and can we roll it out to everyone and we can all use it? So the welcome if signs are going to be key in the way we get people back. Again, when your staff come back, have they been in isolation? Are they aware? Has it been recorded? Are you going to do any checks on your staff to say, do the understanding of the 3 things they might need to look for? What would you do? So if you were at home and you felt a little bit poorly, what would you do? I wouldn't come in. Brilliant. Check, tick, etc. So we need to make sure the staff know what to do on returning by training them, and we might want to test them in the process of doing it. So they're the only things that we have to do in terms of COVID checks. Now, again, thermometry checks have worked extremely well in Sweden and extremely well in some parts of America. Now, the problem I have with this is that, are you asking your staff to become doctors? Imagine a member says, I've just ran from the car because it's raining and I'm hot. Then your staff aren't doctors. How do they know? So this is one of the reasons why I may not do this. But again, this is your choice and how you go about doing it. Again, as our testing ramps up, I know it keeps ramping up and down if you watch the news and if you listen to Piers Morgan. But in general, as the testing starts to get better and better, then will people need to bring in test results to prove they've been tested and to prove that they're okay? Maybe something you need to consider. I know that the likes of Gladstone, they're trying to set this up so you can simply do it on the system. So we've got a digital log of this. And then we go on to the other bit. So thermal imaging. Now, it baffles me because most organisations I work with or I've been into, they struggle to take photographs of people on the system. So thermal imaging, it's a real nice to have. Again, the studies are showing that just because they're hot, it doesn't mean they're ill. But for public confidence, if you've got an extra £15,000 to £7,000, then you may want to consider it. And me personally, nada. Right, now these next two bits I think are key. The seen as being a nice to have. Things like mystery shops, I just don't see it as a nice to have. So I've spent some time working with Pro Insight. Pro Insights already have COVID customer audits. So there's pre-visit checks, there's post-visit checks, and they've already built this stuff in. Now we know there's funding out there from Sports England to make sure that we're set up properly. Now I think that this is the type of thing that the papers and the local news and the press, they can't wait to get some garbage on this type of stuff. So I think we need to know whether we're okay before people come in and start testing us. So again, personally, I would be looking to make sure to get tested in terms of mystery shopping and checks like that. So again, they're deemed as a nice to have on here, but in reality, there's no way I wouldn't have them. So I know there's a lot of organisations that do this, but having spoken and spent some time with Pro Insights, this bit is basically, it's already ready. It's ready to go whenever you are. And I've put details in the pack so you've got that. So there's COVID checks. It's easy, this, isn't it? Okay, the next one is reception/staff measures. Now, again, I'm a big fan of looking after my staff. Now, if that helps look after the customers, brilliant. But everything I would be doing for the staff, which would also be of benefit to the customers. So again, how do we prevent groups? We have to prevent groups, so how are we going to do it? Is there someone walks around with a whistle? How are you going to do it? How's that going to look? Is that one person? Is it two people? Is it one that does outside? Is it one that does inside? This is what's causing all the supermarkets. Is the preventing groups and queuing. They're the biggest issues that they're having. I know Pro Insight was showing me some information on how all the supermarkets have kept going through COVID because it's probably more important now. We used to get mystery shops done to find out whether our service is good or not. Now we're sort of getting them done to find out whether people are going to die in here or not. So that's the reason why I think it's been ramped up just a little tiny touch. But yeah, queuing is huge. So where are they going to queue? Now, where are they going to queue if it's raining? Are you going to go and buy a load of umbrellas? How are you going to help them? What's the spacing going to look like on the floors? How do they know where to stand? How do they know when to come in? How many people are allowed to come in? Whew, I could go on for hours on this particular bit. This is one of the biggest parts of it that you're going to need to sort out. So again, I've spoke with UK Active, and UK Active are looking to put together templates for spacing. So again, instead of having 140 organisations race off to some sort of private printers, then maybe we can get this done on a cheaper scale by working together. As SimSpar say, we are stronger together. So, but we are in a much stronger position. And again, for ordering things like PPE, we know the bigger the order, the cheaper the price. So again, if we can start doing some of these things, then it's absolutely amazing. So thank you very much, UK Active, for starting to look into that for us. Again, like I said, when conflict starts to arise, there will be conflict, especially in the queue, and especially when people can't get on the things they want to book. So you need to have a way of dealing with that. Let's not be surprised by it. Capacity levels, so what are they? And flow counts. So the flow count is how many people are coming in and out. So the flow count is how you're going to measure the capacity levels in the organisation. So again, these are things you have to do in order to make sure that we're doing this properly. Social distancing. Now, I got a guide there, but what I've also done is SimSpar have kindly put together for us. It should be here. Here we go. So this is the SimSpar guide. And you can see that. I'll just move it over. But this is the SimSpar guide on social distancing. Again, this was updated yesterday. So there was one I had that was done on the 1st, and this one was updated as of yesterday. This is the most up-to-date version that they have. As of next week, if there's any updates, the updates will go onto the SimSpar hub. Again, after this, probably early next week, you will receive one email from me. I'm not going to market. I'm not going to pitch. I'm just going to let you know what all the next steps are and where you go to try and make sure this can all stay together. So, yes, you'll get links to where these things are and where the hub's going to be, etc., etc. So in terms of social distancing, we've got a whole raft of information that we've got there. So again, what we're looking at is what signage are you going to use? How are you going to manage? How, what determines whether you're going to send someone home? For reception, etc., can we go cashless? Now, cashless and contactless are slightly differently. One, you need to use a PIN, and one you don't. So ideally, I know they took the contactless rate up to £45. Now, I don't know, but not many of your purchases are probably above £45. So I think contactless is the way to go, but definitely cashless and not using money. Where you have self-swipe stations or kiosks, they now need to become self-wipe. So it's great that they're using the kiosk because they don't need to speak to staff, so that saves our staff from getting in danger. But they need to be able to wipe it so the next person coming in isn't in danger. So if you do have those things, they're brilliant. It stops your staff from having to do stuff, but they need to be able to wipe it. Screens. Now, believe it or not, supermarkets on their retail strategy do not need to have screens. Why do you think they put them in? It's public confidence. Of course it is. It's protecting staff. For the cost of a little bit of perspex, it looks like they're doing a load, right? So again, this is something, it's a decision that you have to make. The guidelines are going to state that you don't need it up to now. They could change at any time. But again, the guidelines are only the least that you need to do. Delivery procedures. So going forward, delivery procedures, what are they going to be? Do they have to stop at a certain point? Do they have to ring up? Does someone then come in and then direct them? Or do they do what they do now, come at reception and hang over the desk and go, delivery? So get a hold of it. Get a hold of it. Now, this next one has caused probably the biggest stir. So most of the sharper organisations, so you speak to organisations, and some of the sharper ones that I've dealt with have decided that they're only going to open if there's a booking only system. So if I want to use the gym I can book a slot between 9 and 10, 10 and 11, 11 and 12. If I get in at 10:30, I've still only got to 11. Yeah. But you can book that hour slot. Now, I see this as probably being one of the only ways of managing this initial influx. They reckon about 30% of customers will come back. Now, again, you've got 1,000 members. If 300 of them try to come back quite quick, that could cause you a huge queue and a huge problem and a bit of a nightmare. Yeah, so again, the key behind this is that you get hold of this part of it. Again, there's a lot more of this. Some of the stuff Gladstone have done on this and helping you put the system together, again, is second to none. Even if you're with Legends, even if you're with XN or any of those other providers who haven't put anything into this, then you can take this document to them and go, look, there you go. But the booking, again, booking for public swimming, booking for gym, etc., I personally don't see any other way, especially in that very first phase. Now we get on to the phasing. This is where it starts to get tasty. So let's have a look. Phasing. So you can see here a lot of these green pens. This means that we've got lots and lots of decisions to make during this whole process. So let's start off with classes. You will need to limit classes. So let's say, for instance, you had 100 classes on beforehand. There's no way you're going to have 100 when you reopen. There's certain classes that you probably won't be allowed to have on. So things like where you share kits, like circuit classes or boxercise or things like that. Anything where you're touching one thing, then you jump to another and then the next person comes. So anything like that is probably going to be out for phase one. So you'll definitely need to limit your classes, which is fine. Now, the space in your classes. So what I've added to this particular document again is I've added another document, which is an example studio setup. So this just gives you the example of how to set your studio up. Now, in America and China, they basically said classes 50%. I think what you've got to do is the amount of space you have should dictate how many people can come in. Now, it might be 54%, it might be 60%, it might be 17%. Yeah, but we have to do this based on the guidelines that we've been given. We have no choice on this. Social distancing has to happen. So in terms of your space in your classes, you're going to need to work this out. Now, obviously, can we do this in other places? I'll talk about that in a minute. In terms of putting markers on the floor, you don't have to, but I would suggest it. So supermarkets didn't have to, but they have. Now, when they didn't, it just caused havoc and mayhem. So get hold of it first. Get hold of it before it starts happening. Waiting for classes, which is probably going to cause the biggest problem. So imagine this, I've got a queue of people outside trying to come into my gym because I haven't used the booking only system. And this lady goes, well, I've got a class and it starts in 5 minutes. Is there a different queue for her? Because she's already pre-booked. Is there a pre-booked queue versus the walk-in queue? So again, these are all decisions that you have to make. But waiting for the actual class. Now imagine your class was an hour. It might now need to go to 50 minutes. 5 minutes to get in and set up, 5 minutes to wipe down and leave. And then the next people who come in don't go up past it. There's no crossing of people. The next people get 5 minutes to get in, and they'll also get 5 minutes to get out. So you're probably going to have to change the times for your classes unless you're lucky enough to have that overlap anyway. Cleaning pre and after. Again, me personally, this would be on videos that would be looping. There'd be a loop and video or telly outside the studio saying, look, this is what we expect of you. This is what we expect of you. Can you please make sure that you do that? Classes where kits shared, forget about it. Head mics, if they use their own, I'd allow them to use their own, but I wouldn't be sharing ours. Equipment, you might want to possibly look at removing. So yoga blocks, mats, foam rollers, Swiss balls. Some organisations have said, well, do you know what? We'll get the customers to wipe them. I wouldn't trust them. That's me personally. I've got staff that are paying. I can't get them to do stuff sometimes. So people who are paying me, I don't know whether I can rely on them to do a job as good as that it needs to be done. So me personally, I'd be taking these things out and selling them. So they can still use them in classes if they want to buy them and use their own. So I'd use it as a bit of an upsell opportunity. In terms of outdoor space, so if we're only going to open up with 50% classes and not much space in the gym, etc., then we might have more space in the car park. Can we cordon it off? Could we use that to do something? Do we have any green space, any pitches, or any other studios or meeting rooms that we could use, or big spaces? We know, I'm going to come on to the gym hall in a minute, but we know that a lot of things that normally happen, team games, group games, etc., in the gym halls are not going to be happening, especially in the early phases. So again, can we use that space to do maybe the classes or to try and keep the numbers up, etc. The gym, like I've said, there's no way I would be letting people back in without a COVID induction, because I know that you cannot keep these places clean unless the customers buy into it. So they have to sign up to agree to help us clean. I went into a gym the other week. They had about 15 gym staff and they've got about, I think it's 7,500 members. You can do the maths, because half the time they're teaching classes or cleaning stuff anyway. So let's be realistic with this. We've got to get the customers to help. So that's one of the reasons why I'd definitely be doing a COVID induction. Now, re-inductions, you will have had people who joined in January, February, March, who instantly, that program's virtually been ripped up and scrapped and they haven't been in for 3 or 4 months. So the key of this is, are you going to re-induct them people? Again, if you are, then how you phase your memberships back in is absolutely key. In terms of new inductions or new members' journeys, I hear this phrase all the time. Let's have a new members' journey. The members' journey is what's happening to members now when they come in. If you're not in control of it, it's your own fault. Get in control of it. And the idea behind it is that in your members' journey, we need to make sure that COVID is going to be included going forward. Because this isn't going away. It's, in September, it's not going to go, it's fine now, everyone's forgot about it. I think this is going to go on for well into next year. Again, the what's expected video, I'd love it if one organisation could produce one of these and roll it out to everyone else, and another organisation could do a communication plan. So again, if we work together, we can be so much better at doing this. Spacing of kit. Now, imagine I've got 12 treadmills, one there, one there, one there, one there. I'm going to have this one in, this one out. So are we going to take that away and put it into maybe a squash court, because squash isn't going to be available to play? And if I put 4 treadmills in a squash court, or 6 because I can fit them in with spatial distancing, it still means I can have 6 people on that court instead of 2 people who are probably going to play squash, who shouldn't be playing because they're probably going to get close to each other. So what I'm saying is the spacing of the kit, can we move it elsewhere? And somebody came up with a question on the first question to say, yeah, we could put it in the sport hall, but how would you protect the floor? I said I didn't know, but rubber matting. Let's go for rubber matting. That'll do it. Wet areas, I'm sure there's loads of people on here from sort of the STA and a few other different swim schools and aquatics bits and pieces. So I see this bit is quite key. Now, I'm still waiting on the Swim England guidance to come out. As of this morning, SimSpa and UK Active still didn't have a copy of this. Now, I know that there was a presentation done by Swim England about 2-3 days ago. So I'm hoping that guidance is just coming any second now. But I'm going to talk you through what we know at this moment in time. Social distancing still needs to happen. So in the pool, now PewTag have basically stated that chlorine kills off COVID, which is fine. So if I've got a float and it's got COVID on it, I put it under the water. When I bring it back out, the COVID is dead. Now, if I cough in your face, you can still catch COVID. So it's an airborne disease. So the only way when you're in a pool that you're totally safe is if you go underwater and don't breathe, which I probably wouldn't advise. It's not the best way to go about trying to get that result. So a couple of ways that I've seen some organisations thinking about it. So you swim down one lane, you go under the rope and then back up the other. That way it's going to give us much more space to try and do the social distancing. Some organisations have now started to circle the pool. Now, how you lane that is a problem to me, but that's what they said they're going to do. But me personally, I'd probably go for the easiest one. You swim down one, go under the rope and back up the other. That way we can try and keep the distance in where possible. And the biggest problem you're going to have with social distancing is the queuing and dropping off. So imagine kids swimming lessons. What normally happens, all the kids or parents pile in and go, woo, they drop all the kids off in the shower. They all go and have a coffee and sit down together. Both of those two things now can't happen. There's a likelihood that you're going to end up with spacing around your pool. The first child that comes on, can you go to that one, that one, that one, that one, etc., until they'd all be standing 2 meters apart all around the pool. So that's what's going to cause you your biggest problem in everything that we do is how do we keep this social distancing? But as I say, for classes and lessons, we've really got to have a plan. Saunas and steam, they will not be open in phase one, especially steam rooms due to the fact that they're pushing the air around. But there's no way that they're going to be open in phase one. So let's make sure that that's happening. If you did close your pool down, who advised that? But if you did, then you're going to need to open it back up again. Now, in the process of doing that, that's absolutely fine. But obviously, you've got to refill the water, rechemical it, reheat it, etc., etc. So there's a guide that I put into the document, which is the PewTag on how to close a pool down. Just reverse it and go the other way. And like we said here, floats, pull buoys, etc. PewTag is saying that if a child coughs on a float and then puts it on the side, the chlorine will kill it. I don't know if they've put it in those exact words, but what they are saying is the chlorine will kill everything. I don't know whether the public have the same confidence as PewTag. So I'm happy to speak to anyone from PewTag or anyone from Swim England or anyone from the STA or anyone that wants to come back to me. Because we need to get the best guidance out there. So that's what we're waiting for, and that's what will be coming. Gym hall, like I've said, lessons and things like gymnastics. Again, can we do it? Can you have gymnastics so you've got the 2 meter of spacing? Probably, yeah. Now, the only problem you're going to have is imagine I've got a student who's about to vault the horse. Is that what you do on a horse? I don't know. But yeah, imagine they're going to vault the horse. And I think that person's going to fall and land on the head. So I step in to save them. Now, there's two things to consider here. Bear in mind, we're only letting in customers who don't think they've got COVID and staff who don't think they've got COVID. Now, when I touch that person, it's to save them smashing their head on the floor. So the danger of them smashing their head outweighs the COVID possibility at that instant in time. Okay, again, we're still waiting on guidance from virtually every NGB. The only one we've really got stuff for is golf. So I've dropped the golf one in here. So you've got a copy of the golf guidelines if any of you do have golf courses or bits and pieces, but not one other NGB has actually provided the exact guidance of what they want as of yet, which is part of the reason why SimSpa and UK Active are, everyone's saying we need guidance, but they need help as well from these other supporting bodies. So it's coming, and hopefully it'll be very, very quick. So again, five-a-side, netball, anything where you've got team games like that, it's not going to be able to happen in phase one. Again, ideally, if you move in some gym kits, you can then still utilize the space. Virtual offering. Now, this has gone huge. Now, could you imagine if we created a database with all the different virtual programs you'd put in? I reckon that people would have had a couple of thousand to choose from. Yet with all the different classes and all the bits and pieces that all your amazing staff have been putting together. Now, what I'm saying now is going forward, how's this going to become and form part of your membership? We know people have loved it. We know the Joe Wicks people who've loved exercising with the kids. We know the people that have already loved the fact that your staff have been putting stuff on Facebook Live so they can keep it up. So what's your plan of keeping this going? Now, again, I'm assuming, I've got to make assumptions. I hate making assumptions. Anyone that's done training with me knows that. But I'm assuming that you've already had a good few communications with them. You must have communicated with them to say, look, we're stopping your membership and these are all the amazing things that we're going to be doing for you. Look what we've done since you last been in. Look what you're doing. So I'm assuming you've done all that communication because you're obviously all sharp and tuned in. So that's brilliant. But where does the virtual offering fit in? And what's that going to look like going forward? We can tell them that probably now. Changing rooms, whoo, these are causing problems left, right, and centre. So, changing rooms. Now, some organisations have stated that they are not going to open the pool because originally in their phase one, what they're going to do is they're going to have people coming in kit, doing the work and going home. So all they need to open is toilets and that's fine. It solves a little bit of a problem. There'll be no grouping. We don't need to man the changing rooms, etc., etc. Some organisations have a pool only changing. Amazing. That's a result. But if you are going to open your pools, and so as soon as you open the pool, you have to open the changing room. So again, that's key. Now, again, imagine that I've got the changing room open. I've got two lots of lockers, top and bottom. All the bottom ones may need to be closed. And then it might be every third or every fourth, depending on how much space you have in your changing rooms. So the number of lockers is going to drop dramatically. I should imagine it's going to be more than halved. Because where you go top and bottom, the bottom are all gone. So half's gone before you've even started doing your social distancing and looking at your space. So you've really got to take this into account. And where do people stand? Where do you want them to stand when they're in there? How do you want them to sort of allocate the shower? Is it a ticket system? Do they need to stand in a certain place so they're not getting in the way of people who want to walk through to the pool? Yeah, it's big. Now, when I started doing this and having a chat with organisations, I very quickly realised that this is all so specific to your individual site, it's untrue. So not until you get in there and you start measuring these things out will you know exactly how is best for you to set up. Shielded communities. So what's happening with those? Over 70s, illness, people who are at general risk. Now, are we going to do what the supermarkets did and create a time slot for them? They get up early, them lot, don't they? I'm only kidding. I'm only joking. Let's not stereotype. But are we going to give them a time to come in? If I was going to give them a time, I would give them an early morning slot because I'd want them in. So every night we do a deep clean. When they come in, it wouldn't have been tainted by anyone else who could possibly have had that danger. So I wouldn't give them a slot at 4 o'clock or 7 o'clock at night because there will have been too many people coming in and that's too much danger for them. So again, just think about it. But these people really need to exercise as well. But they also need to be kept away from COVID. So I know that Sweden and America for now have just gone, no, you're not coming in. That's the choice you need to make. Drop-off areas. So what happens outside? So do you have space for 4 cars? Could they all drop off? Do we now need to create something that says something like certain sports drop off here, other sports drop off here? So do we create zones around the car park? Or do you say you've got to drop off outside of our property? It's not your problem, but you're creating another one because they're gonna just go to the same place. So again, this how people get dropped off when people come in is absolutely key. Work in the community and sports dev. If I'm being honest, I haven't really thought about it too much because they're working with groups of people and going to work with them. So I haven't really taken that into account. If anyone wants me to do any work on it, give me a yodel and I'm sure we can put something together for it. Now, operationally, before we can reopen, so all your heating systems or your AHUs, your air handling units for the pools, etc. If they've been turned off, we've got to make sure they can all come back on and get up and running. Like I've said, this has been a perfect time to do touch-up and maintenance. I'm sure you've already jumped on that bandwagon and the clubs are going to look brand new anyway. So what did you turn off? Did you close your pool? Was any water stagnant? So what Legionella tests and things do you need to do and bring back in? Like I've said, any drains unblocking or, you know, how are you going to try and control access of who's in? So imagine when you open, the pool is closed. How are you going to stop people from going there? Imagine you're going to close the creche. I'm going to come on to that in a second because they're a nightmare for now. But imagine we're going to close that. How's the customer going to know that these things are not going to be available for them? And when I've worked through this with individual trusts, some of them have had to sign this off. They've had to have council sign off before they can go back into the buildings. So if you're a trust and you're obviously working close with your councils, that might be something that you need to do. The last bit of phasing is for things. So climbing, I haven't had any feedback from the national governing body for climbing. I personally think that the holes and various things are really good for holding onto the virus, and it's going to be very, very hard to clean individually every single piece before somebody else goes on. Soft play in phase 1 will not be available. Okay, so children are not very good at social distancing. This is one of the reasons why the children aren't going back to schools as quick as we'd like, because they're not very good at social distancing. There was a whole report on it last night on the news. So the kids aren't very good at social distancing. And could you imagine having to wash 7,000 little balls every time a child goes into that play area just in case they touched it and passed it on? So to start off with, that will not be available. Climbing and waiting on. And again, the updates will go onto the SimSpa Hub as and when we get there. Whew! Anyone else tired? Just me. We're over halfway. These bits start to move quite fast, so let's get through them. Right, data capture, just paramount. It's one of the things I always do with organisations when I do customer service. We need to be able to find out who's coming in and what they want, and did we action it. So again, I put a sheet in here. It's an extremely basic sheet. So it's an extremely data capture sheet, and it looks like that. Yeah, this is if someone phones in, it's where we log what the name was and what they were interested in. If somebody walks in, it's where we write the name, where they were interested in. Now, the reason for this, there will be smaller gyms closing in and around you. Our job is to capitalize on this as much as possible. When we open up, we're going to have 30 to 50% of our business, and then it's going to slowly drip feed, and we don't know how long that drip feed is going to happen. So in terms of maximizing any opportunities you get, make sure your data capture procedure is absolutely nailed on. Now, again, feedback is paramount. So I'm assuming that when you first go back to customers and you ask them or tell them what's happening in coming in or come back, so you're going to explain the phasing and bits and pieces, send them a survey. Now, find out from this survey, what worries do they have? What do they think we've done? What do they think we should do? So let's try and find out what I know there's a load of amazing stuff out there. So there's a national fitness survey done by Alliance Leisure. Absolutely brilliant. Now, 4,000 people took it, but it's 4,000 people who are probably keen on fitness. You know, I don't know whether that's a reflection of all our customers or whether it's a reflection of people who are interested in fitness who managed to see this particular link. Because obviously we never sent information to them. It was all through social media. Now, we need to find out what our exact customers are thinking. If you haven't done this, so imagine they say, we're worried that it's not going to be clean enough. Yeah? Because don't forget, their last memory was what it looked like before they left. And in some places, we've got to fix that. Yeah, we've definitely got to fix it. So they've got this fear. Now, imagine I know they're worried we're not doing anything. And imagine I then put a video on saying that we've done the fogging. You know, this is what the masks they're going to use. These are the screens they're going to have. And I show them that this is the floor and this is the space and this is how we're going to manage this. We're going to do this. Yeah. So again, I can only know I'm hitting the right things to do if this is what our customers want. So if you haven't already done it, start doing it now. Again, you're going to get incoming feedback. This is key. It's the amount of organisations I go to. One of my first questions is, how much feedback did you get last month? Still haven't had an answer yet. No one's ever been able to give me an exact answer. I think going forward, we really, really need this. How much incoming feedback have you got? And has it all been dealt with? Are you going to teach your staff to go and get feedback? Now, some people aren't going to want to give you information, but it's key that we go and get it off them. So how are you going to do that? Are you going to have a little timetable to go to certain classes and just have a couple of minutes? Are you going to go walk down the queue that's outside and say, look, what types of things could be? So how are you going to go and get more feedback? Because that's key. Dealing with feedback and making sure it's action, key. And like it says here, managing to completion. Now, I know these seem like extreme basics, but you would be surprised just how many organizations that I work with that cannot do this and cannot do it effectively. Now, the one thing they're very, very poor at connecting is passing comments. Social media, easy. It's all there. It's all written down. You've had an email in, easy. We've had it. We've had a comment card, brilliant. Passing comments, that should be the biggest feedback that you get as an organization. And if you're not getting any, it might be because you're not listening. So in the past, people have passed information to you. You've done nothing with it, so they thought, what's the point? So this is absolutely key in terms of capturing data and getting data for us to use to improve the service. Communication. So signage is the only thing that we have to, by law, by the guidance that we have to have in terms of communication. So where are you going to have it? On reception, outside, in the gym, on the desks, on the kit, etc., etc. What's this going to look like? The one-way systems, the changing rooms. There's got to be signage everywhere. Now, please, I walked into my to a pharmacy the other day. There was 8 signs outside, all different, all green, because that's their branding, because they went on a branding mission. So it was all green, and they all looked the same, but they all had something different on. I only read 6 of them. When I walked in, and it said, "Please only go in if there's only 2 people at a time." I could only see 1 people in. I swear down, this old lady nearly headlocked me. If she was allowed to touch me, she would have. And it's because I'd only read 6 of the signs outside, and not the 8th, the 7th and 8th ones. Right? So please, signage is normally, I would teach we know the written form is probably the worst form of communication. So there's going to be at least probably anywhere between an extra 400 bits of signage in most organizations. So please don't rely on getting your message across with this signage, because people will become poster blind. Okay, so you've really, really got to manage that part of it as well. Now, again, who do we need to speak to? So customers, we need to tell them what do we expect of them? What should they expect of us, and what is the phasing as we know it now? Now, again, I know that a lot of you probably know some bits and pieces about what's going on, right? And some things that you're doing in the background, but I don't know whether you've told them. So it's one of those, what I found out trying to get hold of guidelines during the process of doing this is that people would rather say nothing than say something and then update it because it's changed. Now, we've got to change. It's unprecedented times. We can't go through the old precedented rules. Yeah, so we've got to change the way we do stuff. So customers are quite easy in terms of staff. So phasing, any financial help they may need, well-being and training that they're going to need before they can come back, etc. These are seen as niceties, but personally, I think it's essential. So we've got to let suppliers know, so when they're dropping things off, etc., we can do the deliveries properly. Any licensees, so if you've got hairdressers, nail beauticians, physios, sports therapists, anything like that, they need to be aware. And any partners that you work with in various councils or schools or whatever it may be. Again, I know you've got partners coming out your ears, so you need to work with them and make sure they're all included. Now, when you're due to reopen, not a bad time to inform them. And what I'm saying here is you'd probably go through the phasing, what's expected of them, the financials and how you're going to unfreeze them. I'll come back to that in a second. No, in fact, I'll talk about that in memberships. Shielded individuals and this survey. And like I've said, there's some really good surveys out there. You don't particularly need to create yourself. I know LeisureNet have done a really, really good one. So by all means, speak to them and get that dropped in. Or create your own and drop that in as well. SurveyMonkey and things like that are free. So yeah, we can get this information very, very, very easy. So due to reopen, we can see there, any changes to the plan, then we would update the customers, and obviously the phases. Now, I know a lot of organizations that think Facebook is the way ahead because it's free. Now, please bear in mind, a lot of your customers mute your Facebook. And the reason why they do it is because a lot of organizations just use it to tell people when things, this class is cancelled or the pool's closed today, or to me, Facebook gets used totally wrong anyway. I'm not going to get stuck into that type of thing now. But please don't think that Facebook is going to solve your problem. You're going to have to physically go to people, old school wise. Whether that's done via email, which is your quickest method. Imagine if you sent out 1,000 emails, but some bounce, then call those people. We've got to have a tactic in how we do this. Okay, so again, I put a template together. So what I've tried to do for this, there's a communication strategy. What I've also done is you've got these examples of posters already built in. So there's little things in there that I've just tried to build them in. There's hundreds of them. I just tried to put a few in one place so you've got a bit of a start without needing to do anything. So I've given you that, and I've also put together this blank communication strategy. So what this is if I quickly scroll up, we put our mission in. What are we trying to achieve? We then do a little bit of analysis, so a bit of SWOT analysis, competitor analysis, know what we're doing. Who are we aiming at? Who are we trying to hit with this? What's the information we're trying to hit them with? What channels are we going to use? How much is it going to cost? And who's going to bloody do it and when? So again, it would be great, if we could work together in groups, we could do workshops, we could find out who we think we should be speaking to. I think we're stronger together, but hey, I'm giving you this. You can all go and do it yourselves if you want. Now, this next part is seen as a nicety, but to me, it's really not. It's absolutely essential. How you relaunch is going to be a massive guide on how confident your customers are by what you're doing. So I had a chat with TA6. The stuff they've done was absolutely amazing. At this stage, I went to them and said, please, can I use this for this presentation? And they said, yeah, of course you can. If it's going to help people, we'll do it. So if you see anyone from there, Woody, John Lieber, any of them lot, James Foley, please thank them, because some of the stuff they put together in this is absolutely amazing, and it will be in the pack. So, testimonials. Now, I'm hoping that you've already got testimonials anyway. You do them on your customers because they've lost loads of weight, or they've managed to run a marathon, or whatever it may be. Now, these testimonials are, in the first week or 2 weeks, it's about doing a little video live chat with someone saying, okay, so how did you feel about coming back? Well, I was a little bit scared, but when I seen all the stuff that they've done. So it's getting these types of videos and these types of testimonials on your social media going forward, letting people know that you had a fear, so did this person, but they've come in and it's fine. What we're doing is amazing. Yeah. So testimonials are going to be key to keep this live and to driving this going forward. Updating your social media. I'm assuming your websites, your social media is all updated because you've had loads of time. Maybe not the case, but hope we've still got a bit more time to do it. Again, if you are going to do any cleaning or staff training or anything like that, like I said, pics of PPE, fog plate, anything like that we can get out there to get this message to let people know. Now, some people have said to me, I'm more fearful of people in a mask. Okay. So if we put a vote out to are more people fearful of people in a mask, if I went to a hospital and they didn't have one, I'd be a little bit upset. Again, different grade. They're not the dodgy ones that you're probably going to have to just go around your ears. They have ones that actually form a seal across the face. But the reality is, I went to Sainsbury's yesterday, and I'd say about half the people in Sainsbury's had them on. So, public confidence-wise, I think they're going to want us to wear them. Okay, so again, let's get this on social media. Let's get it out there. Now it gets to the good stuff. So first and foremost, you've got to design a campaign. Now, do we need 140 different organisations to design a campaign? Or could we work with an amazing organisation who could design one for us, and we're all trying to do the same thing? Yeah? So again, do I need 140 marketing departments putting loads of time in trying to design all this amazing stuff? Or could we just have one as an industry, or one as a group? Or could you do it as GM Active, or could you do it as any little singular groups that you have? We are much stronger together than we are alone. So you can see here, they come up with a great campaign. It's We Are Here, and it's about them being there for you and how we can do this for you, etc. And then what they've done here is they put a plan together. So again, you can't see this on the presentation, but when you get the slides through, it's all readily available. So this is talking about the different channels you use, the different marketing, or who you're going to aim at, and what you do at each phase on the map in your timings, etc. So it's a brilliant plan, and yeah, just do it. But anyway, just get hold of them and they'll help you do it. Digital strategy, so tips on staying healthy, streaming membership, posting workouts. Now, some organisations have been selling home fitness packs. These can have in whatever you think you can sell. So rubber bands, kettlebells, might be a MyZone belt, it might be mats, dumbbells, it could be anything. And okay, so again, like some sites are put together like a COVID pack, which has got like a cloth that you can wipe kit down with, some hand gel so you can wipe your hands, etc. Some people have done this. So the little phoenix has risen from the flames and they've realised there was an opportunity in here rather than this humdrum life that some people are moaning about. I just opened that one, I've already done it. So the last one is brilliant, again by Alliance, and this is who do we aim at and when. So we haven't got a date yet. We're waiting for Big Fozzer to come back with one. Now, let's just say he says it's going to be August, right? I'm pulling this out of a hat. I don't know. I haven't read the Sun, right? So I basically, in August, so in July, I might start this green phase. So the green phase is aimed at people who were live prior to COVID. Okay, then the next month, we're going to start off the process for ex-members. So it's a quick win. It's just a quick win. You've got loads of them on your system, and it's a quicker way to get people in, right? How many people are going to be feeling bad after this? Again, the Alliance said it was about 38% of people would be looking to get a membership going forward. I think it was 35, but have a look. Again, we'll try and link into those figures in the stuff that we do with SimSpart on the updates. And then the last one is for new customers. So again, there's a decision to be made. When you open up, do you let new people in straight away? Personally, no, I'd want to get it right first, because the new people can taint us really, really badly. So let's solve the problem with our existing customers, people who are happy and already know us, and then we can go from there. But again, it's an absolute genius bit of stuff that they put together. And like I say, there's a little bit more detail. If I come into, where is it now? If I come into the marketing guide here, you can see there's a few more bits of information that we put into here. So how you open the facilities, campaign briefing, how that would look, the relaunch phase and what that looks and how that's going to work and how that fits into this particular document. And then there's some information details here for Woody if you want to get hold of them. Okay, so communication is absolutely massive. To me, this is a brilliant opportunity for us to launch our businesses and let them know exactly what we've done while they've been closed, while they've been sitting at home getting chubby and eating chocolates. What have we done for them? And I bet you they can't wait to come back then. The next one is memberships. So this is about phasing memberships. So you may have an over 60s membership and you might say that comes in phase 2 or 3. You may have children's memberships and you don't want them to come back straight away. So you've got to look at, again, all the different organisations I've looked at, then they've got different membership setups. I was in an organisation the other week, got 126 membership types. Trust me, it's real. So you can imagine they've got a lot of decisions to make about who comes in phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, etc., etc. Are you going to have any new memberships on board? So is there going to be a virtual or a blended membership? Are you going to have a virtual pay-as-you-go, etc., etc.? Ex-members. So again, it's just a brilliant target market. We've got all the details. We can market to them as long as you've asked the right questions on your GDPR, which of course you have, because you'd be daft if you didn't do that. Everyone who joined before GDPR, of course, we can market to them. So I'm assuming that you didn't throw all that away. I spoke to 4 organisations already that did. Anyway, it's their choice. They made that choice. That's fine. Now, again, are you doing any sort of family membership? So there's a lot of people who got on board with this, the Joe Wick stuff. So have you got an offering or something that fits in and around it? Hopefully you have, and we can advertise that going forward. Now, this next bit is, like I've said, this is for any leisure management system. It's just Gladstone that have kindly put the work together for me. So these are the changes you definitely will need on your system. You will definitely need to change class sizes and timings for your classes. All right, so those 2 things are definitely going to happen. You might need to take certain classes off. Now, whereas some centres might have a turnstile swipe, fine, swipe, we'll wipe it every now and again, that's perfect. Some organisations have where they hand the card to reception, they swipe it or they scan it and then they hand it back. So what I'd be doing is I'd be moving the scanners. I'd be moving the scanners so they can just go beep and they can do it themselves. Again, preventing the touching. Again, the contactless, cashless thing, Gladstone have got a full plan of how they would do that for you. Now, the unfreezing option, this is where this always causes a lot of conversation. So what this is basically saying, imagine, I was speaking to someone the other day and they said, look, Craig, I don't think we can charge full price when we reopen, right? So I said, okay. I said, ethically, this is what I'd love to do if I had all the money in the world. On phase 1, you're only going to pay 50% of your membership. Phase 2, 70. Phase 3, 90. Phase 4, hopefully we're back to normal and you can use all our facilities. Now, that's amazing. And if you can do that because you've got loads of money, please do it. Because that would be a lovely thing to do for your customers, is to give them money back for the sake of it. Now, what I put in here is I put the Sky approach. So what happens at Sky, now a lot of people don't like this, and I don't personally, but I think in this situation, it's key. And it's this. As people come to you to complain, we have a process and we deal with the people who complained. So what I'm saying there is, if I've got 1,000 members, I don't bring 1,000 members back at half price. Let's say 200 complain, 200 get half price. Okay, because some of the others will be willing to pay. All right, so the idea behind this is that you've got to look, I'm not telling you which one of these decisions to make. But personally, I would not be doing the ethical one because I think you probably lost enough money already. I was doing some simple maths on that, and it is huge. It is absolutely huge, especially depending on how long this phasing lasts for, because that, again, we don't quite know yet. Again, you're going to need to set up a booking system for things like the public swimming, your gym, etc. Now, front screen touches. So how I'm explaining this, imagine I sold 2,000 waters last month, and that is 3 touches away. So I've got to touch one thing to say drinks, then I touch another one, then I touch another one. Now, could I run a report? I can. It's a transaction detail report and filter it by units. That will then tell me how many times I touch the till. So instead of touching the till 6,000 times for the water, I'd only touch it 2,000. So all our top sellers should be on that front screen. Most of the providers are able to do this, and it's going to mean a hell of a lot less touching, which means a lot less chance for our staff to get it. And what Gladstone also advised as well is, could you get touch pens? Studies are showing us that the virus lives much longer on our hands than it does on a rubber pen. So again, that's another way we could do it. Again, we were saying before, blended memberships, less pay-as-you-go schemes. And these two at the bottom are absolutely a no-brainer. How much can we get online and on mobile? Because that means that we don't have to touch them and we don't have to sort of deal with the actual thing that they're trying to achieve. If they can make a booking on their own without us having to interact, that's the best place we can be at. So again, in terms of leisure management system, oh my God, it's huge. Let me show you a little brief of what it is they put together. So this is just leisure management system alone. Okay, it's massive. It's gold dust. It's stuff that you've got to do. So hopefully, brilliant. Right, we're on the final stretch. Oh my God, we're on the final stretch. Come on, we can do it. Or I can, or you, whatever. I can't remember now. So, memberships. NHS, is there a membership for them? Do you have a membership, and how are you advertising this? I can now see people's heads racking in the background. People are saying, why not frontline workers? By all means, do frontline workers. By all means, I just don't know how you're going to monitor it. If I did an NHS or a 999 or a blue light, then I can easily monitor it. So that's the reason why I, for now, am picking NHS. If you want to do all frontline workers, it may impact your membership, because I reckon you've got a load of members who are frontline workers or who will deem to be one, and they will be able to prove that they can drive a van or whatever it may be that they've been doing. So I think personally, we do a clap on a Thursday for the frontline workers, but NHS, they're on this front line. Let's do something for them. And if we can do something for everyone else, amazing. Let's do it. Do you have any licensees? So do you have a physio or a beautician, hairdresser, whatever, anything that you sell space to that where they hire you space? Could any of those give discounts to any of our NHS staff? Could you run a charity event across the organisation? Now imagine this, imagine all you lot pooled together and we did something through SimSpa or UK Active or whoever it is that you want to work with, or Community Leisure, or all these sorts of different groups that we've got. Now, could you imagine how much someone like Community Leisure or SimSpa would raise? Now, you're probably going to raise the same amount of money, but it's when it all gets pooled in, the social media and the impact you can have via campaigns will be much, much higher. Now, 140 organisations raising a couple of grand each, or a couple of organisations raising 500,000. I think I know which one's probably going to get there. And the last but not least is, can we create open hours for these superheroes? Can we create open hours, and can we do it for them? Right, I've finished. So you are going to get a copy. I'm going to extend this whole thing out and then make it shrink. You're not going to be able to read it, but Jesus Christ, look how much you've got to do. This. So you're going to get a PDF that will look exactly like that. It will look small. When you zoom in, you'll be able to see it. It'll be absolutely fine. But as you can see, we've just covered an absolute shed load. What we're going to do now is I'm going to go to Dornan. She's going to go to the questions, and I'm going to happily try and answer any questions. Once I've done that, what I'm then going to, in fact, what I'll do, I'm going to present this. No, I will. I'll do the question and answers next. And then there's a little tiny bit of a presentation where we're going to drop the leads and the the things into your way possible. So, Dawn, fire away.
Hi there. Okay. Wow. My goodness, you can talk the hind legs off a donkey. So, yep, over to the questions. Thank you to everyone for submitting. So, one just to start off with, we've got comments as well as questions. We've got in Scotland, it's actually just been announced with Nicola Sturgeon that we've got another 3 weeks of lockdown. So again, that might affect our Scottish contingent. So one of the questions that came up under the PPE and protecting staff was in relation to, is there guidelines on team members working within the pools and what appropriate PPE is required?
Yeah, the guideline says the PPE they needed beforehand. So this is the whole point. If you're just going to follow the guidelines, basically nothing's changed in terms of PPE. They're saying that you don't have to wear a mask, you don't have to wear gloves, but you do if you're cleaning, but you had to do that if you were cleaning anyway. So if you're going to follow the guidelines, nothing needs to change, but I don't know whether that's going to be enough for public confidence. Now, in, I think it was Alabama, they opened up without masks and screens, and it massively impacted them. And I think they got about 37% of their customers back. It was really, really low. And that's the fear of not doing this. So even if they're on poolside, no matter where they are, the guidance is basically saying, carry on as normal. But you can if you want to wear it. So again, the guidelines doesn't want you to spend £1,000 or something if you don't need it. But the reality of this is, sorry, that was my son popping his little head in, but it's all good. The reality of this is that I'd be thinking here about my staff and what the customers are going to think, and I wouldn't be led by guidelines when it came to PPE, but I can understand why some people would. Hope that helps. Damstead?
Interesting. Another one that came through, really a few questions that sort of overlapped, was about understanding the responsibility then of any like third-party businesses. Now that could be clubs, teams, outside organisations. It's how far do like the leisure sector need in order to get them to comply? And
they have to comply. There's no choice. You're probably going to find that a lot of your clubs will come back as and when that sport's allowed. So if you have football clubs or if you have a squash club or whatever it may be, they won't be able to come back until that sport's allowed to happen. Yeah, so that's going to help us a little bit within the phasing. But again, we are still waiting on the national governing bodies to give us this information. I would suggest that if you don't think that you can social distance during the sport, it's not going to be in phase one. So did I answer that question then? Sorry, I got slightly sidetracked when my child walked in.
Yep, that's all fine. Again, points raised on the collaboration of signage. We're all going to need signs essentially, and then obviously some of the guys from Swansea University and Wales National Pool is looking, and Stephen said, again, the need for the translation of the signs. Once we get the signage agreed and what's on it, it can be translated into other languages as well.
Well, I think what we're looking at there is we're going to need 3 signs, one for Scotland, one for Wales, one for England. I'm not omitting Ireland because I think they have the same as us, but they've got different guidelines anyway because their Prime Minister came out about 3 or 4 days ago, didn't he? So you're right. Yes, we need to. Everything that we do needs to. This is a big problem I've found is that Swim England, Swim Scotland, Swim Wales. I'm not sure whether they speak to each other, but I don't think they've got together to come together with a plan of what we need to do with swimming. And not just Swim England, by the way, because Swim England, I know they've done some amazing work in the background. So I'm not just saying that, it's all of the sports. But you're right, Wales will need to do what Wales need to do, and Scotland needs to do what Scotland needs to do. And a lot of the information that we're getting is based on Public Health England. Okay.
Craig, so another thing that came up, Shan kindly dropped in that Swim Wales are actually going to be running a webinar this Tuesday in relation to back into the water. And they've been working with British Swimming and the home nations. So again, that's something worthwhile if anybody's needing to tap into that webinar.
Again, Sean, if we've got any links for that, if you can send them across into the chat, and then we can sort of make sure all these types of things are added into the pack that goes out. Now, the initial pack that you get will be everything that I've shown you today, and I'll go through all that again in a minute. But as I say, there will be an updated hub where all these things and little links and things will be going on. So please make sure you send that type of stuff over for us.
Yep, absolutely. One that came in from Andrew Nelson, he was just asking, is there any concern or research around building the memberships back to full capacity? Because obviously you'd alluded to that earlier.
It's the only thing, Andy, is when we get to a stage where we don't need to social distance anymore, which I don't. It's well into. I think it's well into next year, mate. I honestly think it's well into next year, and so. Are we ever going to get back to the way that we used to and having that sort of space and people crammed in spaces like we did? I don't think so. But again, we've got to wait for Boris and co, mate. But all I'd be saying at the minute is you've got to take into account now social distancing. I think let's get that bit done first before we try and let's run before we can walk. We're trying to think about things which are going to happen early next or later at stage next year, and we've got problems now that we need to fix. So I'm sure we'll be able to get you an update as and when that comes. But at the minute, we only know what we know.
Okay, Craig. Yeah, another one just even relating back on the sort of wet side of things is even looking at scuba diving in the pools. Again, this is where we'd probably be looking for advice and guidelines to come in from the agencies for these sports.
Well, I don't know how many scuba divers they have, but out of their membership base, if I drew a map, I reckon it'd be a very, very small slither, the scubas. So again, I'd be looking at that type of stuff in phase 2, especially because of all the kit and things that they bring in with them. Because you've already got social distancing issues, the last thing you need is a load of kit. But again, as we start getting the guidance and it comes in off these specific people, then we can make sure you've got the guidance from the NGBs, and that's key. At the minute, what I'm basically saying to you is if you can't social distance, it's probably not going to be in phase 1. And I think that's all we can say. But obviously things like scuba or water polo is a team game. You've got to go closer. That one's out. But yeah, it's a very, very, I should imagine scuba diving is a very, very small part of what we all offer as a whole. But yeah, it's got to be considered.
Big thanks to Mark Moore. He'd shared some guidance on golf from England Golf. So Mark, thanks for putting that link into the chat. And then some other things, obviously on your last point on what we can do for the NHS.
Sorry, can I just check with Mark?
Yep.
Is it this one? Is this the guidance that he's got? If he could just put like a little hand up or something, or a little yes or no or something. So this was obviously done for the UK Golf Federation. It's just because, so we don't get duplicate links, we don't start sending people off for stuff that we might already have. But Mark, thank you very much, sir. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, Mark said it was updated as per England Golf this morning as such. Okay. So thanks, Mark. Okay, so some of the other things that came in, there was questions coming in about resources. Where can we source PPE, and do we have any contact details and things from that? Again,
now I do. I do have some details. If anyone wants them off me, then please send me an email and ask them for me, and I'll send them back to you. I don't want to send it out in the pack because I don't want the pack to guide where people go, if that makes sense. Obviously, in terms of PPE, it's not. I did have 10, and I've filtered it down to 1. I should imagine you're going to have the same problems. The amount of people who've hiked up prices is absolutely sickening. So this is again. This is where I think it makes sense, where if we can work with SimSpot or ourselves or doing something for you, where imagine someone's got masks that are the right standard and they get them for 40p and someone else gets them for 14. Yeah, we can start doing like price checks and working between us and trying to find out where we can get the best deals. So how that fits in with your procurement with the council, I'm not sure, but I definitely think it's something that's going to save us a hell of a lot of money.
Okay, really good one coming in from Gemma Dempsey, talking about, obviously we're now in May and the summer's approaching essentially, and she was just looking for your views on children's summer camps and the activities recommending.
Well, obviously we haven't had guidance on it yet, but if there's going to be social distancing, which I reckon there will, then how would you social distance the kids? If you can do it, you can run the session. But that's the problem. Kids this is the biggest problem they're having in schools, is that it's how do you teach kids? Imagine you've got like a 4-year-old kid How do you tell a 4-year-old kid not to go and speak to his mate, or they just fell over and you want to go and sort of pick them up and help them, but you're not allowed to? So if you can social distance, it's not a problem. But there's a high likelihood for that type of stuff, and we might not be back in at that time. We don't know yet. We've got to wait for Big Bozza on Sunday to give us this next phase, or the start of phase 2, as Boris is calling it.
Okay, Mayor was just asking about whether, do you think 3G will be in the phase 1? Opening is outdoors? No.
It's mostly team sports that's on it. So by all means, if you can open your 3G, as long as you can make sure the social distancing will happen, but you won't be able to open up 3G for football unless you play end to end. Old school, 2-touch, classic.
Okay, Lee Hassan from Team Leisure, he asked, do you think we will need to allocate a set square metre per customer, in terms of facility side, divide by the space per customer to give a guide to the amount of customers allowed in the centre?
3 meters squared is the guide that they're using at the minute for things like aerobics. Again, as this gets updated or changed, we'll let you know. But that's really what you're looking at, is a 3 meter square space for people when they're in. And that's why you'll probably see a lot of it. When you saw this sort of COVID check here for Sweden, it says that they've got to be 1.5 meters apart, which is why you'd have 1.5 either side, which is the 2 meters squared. So hopefully that helps explain that one. Anything else?
Yep, sure. Mr. BP Culliford, infected particles will surely travel further than 2 meters from people breathing heavily from exercise. Unless all users wear masks or we somehow clean the air, surely we can't open. Again, that concern about it being an airborne virus.
Theoretically, you're only letting in people in that haven't got COVID. So that you've got to take that into account. Ideally, they will have been tested and are now okay, or they haven't got it. Now, we still don't know whether they have got it or not, and you're dead right. There was a study done on running about when you run and how far the pathogens are behind you. Again, at this moment in time, we don't have those studies for aerobics as of yet. I know, is it EDM, is it? The exercise to music people? I know they put something together, and I've just got to get my hands on it and go through it with SimSpa. But you're dead right. Theoretically, imagine we're both meant to grapevine this way. Am I coming back into his breath or not? Imagine I make a mistake and we both end up closer. So these are the considerations. You've got to be able to manage it. So yeah, hopefully that's good. Dawn Ann, I'm just going to hold off on questions just for a bit, just to get through this last bit. So if you can just bear with me for 1 second. So we've already done this slide. That's fine. Move on. So what are you going to get? So you are going to get a full... every single thing that you've seen. So you can see here data capture, and there's all the tabs. So this is basically exactly the same as the mind map. It's just in a format that you like to use. Again, if I actually show you the actual document at the end, what you'll see is you are going to get a full breakdown of exactly what it looks like. It's got the flags at the end telling you which ones are red, which ones are green, etc., etc. And if you go a little tiny bit further up to the top, you'll see there's a little section so you can allocate this out to your team and find out how things are going, etc. So I'm trying to make this as workable as possible. Now, again, so you're going to get a copy of that. You're going to get a copy of, this is an amazing document that SimSpa have put together. And we got the guidance that's due to come out. And we went through to find out it's the must, should, could. So the flags that I put on my documents are based around this document. So this is a very, very quick guide of must, should, could. This is the PPE guide, so you find out how much you need to order. This is an example of a risk assessment. This is an example of a cleaning check and standards. This is an example of cleaning standards. This is the social distancing by SimSpa. These are the posters that you can just print out. This is the Gladstone leisure management stuff. This is a load of information that you could add to your mystery shopping, or if you wanted to order it yourself. I've also got a load of information from Dave from Pro Insight, which I'll drop in as well. This is a data capture sheet, spacing, the full marketing plans and how you go about doing them, and obviously finishing off with the communication. Now, obviously, in terms of the presentation, I'd like to, hopefully you've enjoyed it. In terms of numbers, we've stayed relatively stable all the way through. So thank you very much for bearing with us. It's hard listening to someone for 2 hours or so, rattle on. But I'd like to thank SimSpar and UK Active for all the work they're doing in the background on the policies and bits and pieces. Without Dornan, this whole thing wouldn't have happened. You'll get a quick email off Dornan, just giving you a guide, just in case you couldn't click on links. It's just a backup, but you'll get that in a minute or within probably about an hour of the session. Gladstone for putting some work out there that can be used by any leisure management provider is genius. TA6 for pulling a campaign out the bag, which was absolutely phenomenal. Safety Slip Services for giving us all the details on deep cleans, etc., etc. Now, obviously, what I'm asking for yourselves, I've done all this for nothing. I don't want anything from it. The only thing I want is that as you start to fill out some of these documents or use these things, if we've missed anything, please send it along to me. Please send it along and I can find out and start adding to this, and we can do like a weekly update or a fortnightly update, or we may realise that you may want to have workshops on the marketing, you might want to have workshops on cleaning. If that's what you want, then I'm happy to look, to speak to all these different businesses so they can put these together for you. So within the feedback, it just asks what type of things might you want to do. But you can see there, we are much stronger together. Please pull together and do that. As of early next week, we will have a place for you to go, a hub on the SimSpar site. And that's where we're going to add all the Swim England and RLSS and the NGBs and all the updates. Everything will go to that one place going forwards. And obviously the government phase and as and when BOSA gives us information. Now, Dornan is just about to drop into the chat a link to give me feedback. Obviously, once you've clicked on that link, it will open up another page for you. As and when you can do that, please, this is paramount to me. Honest to God, I reckon I've done about 5 weeks' work. I haven't seen my wife and kids for quite a while in order to do this. Not a bad thing, but hey, it's all good. I do love them, but they're all fine. But yeah, I put quite a lot of effort in, so please just give me 5 minutes of your time to give me some feedback so I know how I can improve things going further. I'm hoping that this is the last time I need to do this presentation, but I know when I spoke to Tara last, she did have a couple of organisations that she might want me to do it for. So it's also getting videoed, so you will be able to see it, and a link will also be added to the site and on the hub for us. So hopefully you have the feedback link. That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Dornan, for dropping that in. Now what Dornan is going to drop in is the links to the free resources. So this next link, if you click on this will allow you to download the PDF of the mind map. Like I said, it will look small, but zoom in, it'll be absolutely fine. And it will also give you the Excel document with all the tab documents added to it as well. So, peeps, you got this. It's easy. You're going to smash it out the park. The only thing I say from my perspective is, now automatically, I presented this now to Scotland. I did it to 140 odd universities yesterday. Now, I'm a little bit inundated, so I've got to get this message out sort of loud and clear. My customers that I work with first will be my first priority, and then I will be willing to help other organisations. Now, please only ask me to do work with you if you are serious about getting this right. I get too many organisations who think I'm going to do 2 days of training and turn around their whole business. So my customers will get looked after first. Of course they will, because they're my customers and I buzz off them. And obviously I'm happy to take other people on board, but only if you're really serious about doing this correctly. So that's key. Now, I have a little poll for you, and the poll is this. How useful has this session been? Again, I've done this on a number of days, so let's see how the UK clubs rank. So yeah, if you could please do this for us. This is absolutely, again, it's gold dust for me. It helps me know exactly what you need to be doing. And you can see as and when they're starting to come through. So yeah, thank you very, very much. Keep doing that. So we've had 41 at the minute. I'm not sure, Dornan, how many people have we got online at the minute? About 130 odd?
129, Craig.
Okay, 129. Sorry, yeah, don't be pedantic over one there, Diane, no probs. Yeah, if you can keep voting, that's lovely. Perfect. Thank you very much for that vote. That gives me a little vote of confidence that what I've been doing has been the right stuff for you. So thank you very, very much. I will now hide those results. So what I'm going to say now is, obviously my details are up there. If you want to contact me, by all means do. If you like this presentation, feel free to put something on LinkedIn. If you didn't, send me the feedback and I'm happy to do something with it. Even being honest, if you didn't like the presentation, put it wherever you like. But I don't really go to all these social events and all this network and stuff. I don't really do it. So any feedback that comes from you lovely people is much appreciated by me. As of Dylan, are there any more questions, or is there anything else that we need to cover, do you think? Or
Hi, Craig. Yeah, there's been we've got a last flurry of questions in, as such, and just going back to some of them just now. A comment was made. Do you think once we see the schools reopen, we can then follow how they operate regarding our children's activities?
It's got to be a starting point, hasn't it? If schools don't know how to do it, schools must be better at this than us. So this, again, it makes sense. Some of the links you have with local schools and bits and pieces, what can they teach us anything? Can they help us with this before we come back? They're the experts at kids. We're the experts at leisure. So yes, if anyone's got really good contacts with schools and they've already done something, which I'm sure they have, let's get it across. Let's get it in this group and let's get it shared.
Yep. Mark Wildman, again, talking about how you can deliver classes. It's looking at these sort of the large spaces are surely the best areas for getting activity like classes out there with the spacing, and possibly even for those of the providers, if they've got outdoor space as well, again, weather permitting.
If you've got outdoor space, use it. It'd be crazy to imagine limiting the class to 50% when it doesn't have to be. It doesn't make sense. So that's when I said, whether we close a car park, use green space, use a field, whatever we can do to try and keep the numbers as high as possible. But obviously, we're still doing social distancing.
Again, that valid point from Mark Palmer, talking about, how about wheelchairs and aids coming into facilities, and advise about cleaning equipment like this prior to entering facilities. So it's for the people that are not as able-bodied accessing the facilities and what they need to adhere to?
Well, even being a majority of the buildings are designed so they can access them themselves, which is a good thing. Now, there's a high likelihood that we're going to have more people in the queue, on the door, and wandering the club to make sure there's no group. So ideally, we should have more people for when that happens. But again, it's all going to be down to the situation. But again, if we can get any guidelines of any sort of disability forums or groups, I'm more than happy. I'm happy to look into what's happening in supermarkets and how they dealt with it, because they seem to be the sort of brand going forward, or the retail sector. So I can have a look and we can answer that question later a bit more.
Great. Yep. Comments even looking at the last part to do with extending memberships to the NHS, and some great comments coming in. Sarah from Wales National Pools saying, look, it's an opportunity for having a charity event, and then also the sort of timeliness with National Fitness Day coming up. From Shelley Austin, again, is that an opportunity to do something good and give back?
Well, of course it is. Anything where we can all group together and do it under, one sort of remit or one theme, much better. Obviously, National Fitness Day is something that happens every year, so it's something that we should already be part of. And I'm hoping that you've already got some sort of blue light or NHS sort of memberships as well. But this is about making a fuss of the people who've really helped us out during these tough times. So, police, ambulance, hospital, all these types of people. That's why the blue light probably takes it a little bit further than NHS. But we've got to do something, and our collective is so much stronger and better. So, if you've got 10 organisations, you're going to get much better publicity by collating all you collected for the 10 than you will. But imagine if we could do it at 7,000. We might even be able to challenge that gentleman who got 32 million. We'll see.
Yep. Again, common theme coming through again is just general questions around what level of communication consultation has been achieved by the various NGBs with NHS professionals to construct the information that's going to be circulated specific to our leisure environment. So I think everyone's really looking.
Right. The problem is the NGBs will always be trumped by Public Health England, or Public Health Scotland, or Public Health Wales. Yeah. So it doesn't matter what guidelines the NGB comes up. If Public Health England come up and say, no, you can't do that, then they can't do it. So a majority, we've got to wait for the Public Health England guidelines to come out. So that's what people are really waiting for before the NGBs can do stuff. So in fact of sort of going to speak to the experts, that's where the information's coming from. Public Health England will give us a guide, and then from that guide, we can create our own guide for our people.
Yep. Neil Williams came in with like he says that like some staff will have to break the 2 meter social distance guideline and certain manual handling tasks, and he just was asking for your opinion. Would you refer to almost like construction guidelines, or are there other guidelines that we need to look at where we might be compromising this 2 meter rule?
Well, I don't know how many things they have that need two to carry them. I'm not sure. Again, it's going to be a piece by piece. I'm going to wing an answer if I do, and I don't want to, Neil, if I can help it. But we need to find out. So, Dawn, if you can put that onto the list, or we've already got that on the list, then we can make sure we do that as a follow-up.
Yeah, kindly Simon Blair came in and said, like lifeguard training is an example. Obviously, the towing in the pool means it's impossible to distance.
But if they are towing in the pool, the chlorine will have already killed it.
Okay.
So PewTag say. Just getting that out there. PewTag. Right. Okay, Dawn. Thank you very much for those questions. Absolutely amazing, peeps. I hope you've enjoyed it. If anyone has any issues, you can't download the files, anything like that, please get in touch with either me or Dawn. We will send you a link in a minute to help to make sure you can get them. You will get one more follow-up email. There'll be no spamming. There'll be no crazy marketing. You will get one more up telling you what all the next steps are. I hope you've enjoyed the session. Like I said, if you did, feel free to put something nice on LinkedIn. Thank you very much for my time. Thank you very much for your time. And thank you for all the people who've helped try and pull this together. Goodbye.